And then we started doing a high tea once a month. And so that's kind of what we're doing. And it's wonderful to be able, to be honest with you, because this is a private residence in a private neighborhood. It is the only way we can show Thornwood. You can come here as our guests, and that's the only way. We cannot open it to the public. Yes, ma'am.
What time period was this?
It was from about, I think in the 70s, 80s. It was still apartments when Richard and Debbie bought it. Such as it was, it had been empty with the ceilings falling in. I'm not sure the total, I've not been able to. My husband is gone and I haven't read them. He picked up every building permit and everything that's ever been on this house. So we had that, including a copy of Chester Thorne's will. So we're piecing that together, and I'm sorry I can't give you, I'd like to give you accurate information. So I don't know, it looks to me like it was about a 20-year period maybe. Yes, ma'am.
How many people live in to help you or live out to help?
Well, they live out, sort of in and out. We had a daughter that lived, because they added on what they called the annex. They added on a 1, 2, and 3-bedroom apartment. They took the old drawing wall that you'll see up in this rendering, and they built an additional living quarters on out to keep in keeping with the apartment period concept. But they did have this old drawing wall. And one daughter lived in the 1-bedroom for a little bit, but she just got married, so she's kind of given that up. She's still keeping it, so if I have, like really big things, she can, still spend the night, and she and her husband, so she kind of keeps that for herself. But everyone else lives out. My husband and I live here. We have a full-time staff of 4 and a part-time staff. Sarge is still with us. He's been here for quite a while now. Yes, sir?
Did the film company contact you, or did you contact the film
They
company?
contacted us through the Washington Film Commission. Now, right after they left, 2 weeks, actually it was around November 1st, and they were leaving November 15th, because it was before they were totally gone. Warner Brothers called us and asked about doing some filming here, and I very politely, maybe not so politely, but I said, no thank you, call us in 2 or 3 years. So we paid very dearly. In fact, it almost cost my husband and I our health to be able to do it. I had a cardiac episode. He went on blood pressure tablets, and we were 2 perfectly healthy people before. It's like living with 150 of your best friends. There were people all over the place. And we had kept quarters for ourselves in the servants' wing. So that we thought would be fine. But I found I was on call 24 hours a day because, people trying to find a fuse box, trying to do this about the plumbing. Well, what do you think about this? How do you want that? So we decided we will never build a house. We don't want to go through it. It's just much too painful. Anybody else?
What kind of heating was it? What kind of heating was it as an apartment?
Same kind of heating. It's steam heating. It's very efficient, and it gets you very toasty warm.
And also, you said that was the ceiling area was covered up. Was this mold and decorative effects, was it there?
Okay, this is exactly the ceiling as it existed when it was built. It was covered with a drop ceiling. They repaired that corner. They repaired a piece going up the side. There were pipes going straight up through the middle of the room. They were rerouted under the floor and went up here. And then the Disney people matched the paint. So this is original. I don't think this would have survived apartments otherwise. Where the elevator shaft was, they rebuilt that. They actually got up and they did some moldings, because this is not geometrically. It was an art form versus today's just geometrically correct thing. So they actually had to do some of the sculpting up in the next room, right up on scaffolding. And we call them Michelangelos.
How many days do you accommodate?
We try to do, we will accommodate like 6 rooms, so that gives us 12. Everything here is designed for two. We're considered a romantic getaway. We just, most of our rooms have jacuzzis, and our modern things that we're putting in are hot tubs and jacuzzis and that kind of thing. But we're trying to keep things, with that exception, pretty much the same. We're adding, when we furnished, we had to furnish with what we had. So we're adding more antique pieces in the bedrooms, and we're bringing in more of our things because we've got a basement full and a little warehouse full, so we're bringing in things. I was collecting all this stuff forever, never knowing where I was going to put it. My husband said he's so thankful we finally have a home for the piano. Now we got to get a couple of keys are sticking on it, so we've got to get the piano tuner out since it moved back in. But the things we have put together since the middle of November is really hard to do. To clean the house is really hard too. A lot of people would ask me in my life, oh gee, you can just do everything. Is there anything you won't do? And I said, yes, I don't do windows. Well, guess who's doing windows? So, and plus I want to, we're getting ready to have the windows cleaned in another month or two. And you know, I definitely want to supervise, because have you ever wondered what people look like back in the 13, 14, 1500s? I mean, really wondered what we have no pictures, we have very little from that time. But when you look at the stained glass, artists painted from the faces that they saw. And so when you look into the stained glass, you can actually, it's like seeing a picture of someone from that time. And some of the pieces are small, but there's one very precious piece that's a little goat herder going across a bridge. And he's got a little couple of sheep and a little building in the back, and his sheep have long hair. It's just fascinating to see. And when you look, you see people of that time. You really get a feeling for them. You feel like you kind of know them by looking at this glass, because you see their hopes and you see their fears in this glass. A number of them have religious significance. There's a Gethsemane scene. There's a Doubting Thomas scene. So there's a lot of unusual Madonnas. They're just really unusual. Yes, ma'am?
With what theater are you affiliated?
The Auburn Dinner Theater.
Thank you.
But then you look at the opposite end of it, and you see some of the drawings are scary. You know, they have a Medusa with all snakes, and they've got some really gargoyle-ish looking kind of people. So you can kind of see their fears and their hopes. And they're very much like we were. They just were struggling and making a living and tending their families. So if you ever get a chance to come back sometime in the daytime, don't hesitate to take time to look. Be sure you have time to look at the glass, because although some of the pieces are small, they're magnificent. And to be honest with you, I spend a good bit of time just sitting in front of a window because it's so beautiful. We have another thing that happens here, especially in the garden. We had a Scotsman working on the house, and he says the wee fairies, the wee ones live in the garden. And there's a time in this, especially in the summer and in the fall, it's kind of like an eventide when, of course, being in the theater, I have a lot of dreams, but at Thornwood, it's almost like two worlds touch. You can sit in the garden, and it's just like, for a moment, you're almost like suspended in this beautiful, magical place. And it's, you know, just when the dawn, you know, and the night meet, you know, daylight and nighttime meet, just at sunrise, when it's not even sunrise, just before it peaks. And then as the sun's just starting to set, and it's like, it's just magical, and I hope someday you'll all have a chance to experience that here. Because I know by belonging to the Historical Society, you all love history, and there's some very special things about Thornwood. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Do you actually know on those little stained glass pieces you were saying you knew the date roughly on when they were
The
made?
age.
Do you know where they came from? Where they came from?
Well, they were collected all over Europe. There was a dude that spent about 40 years collecting these pieces because it's considered a lost art. And Chester Thorne purchased them and had them set in these windows and when he had them made in England. You can kind of tell the dates because in stained glass, you know, it isn't like, as I'm sure you probably all know, but it isn't like paint painted on glass. It's glass painted on glass. When they first started, you know, they would melt it to extreme temperatures, add some pigment, and paint. And your very earliest glass is only 2 tones. It's the frosted or cream white with just a little brown tone on it. And then they added some gold, and so you began to get a different color. Then they added some red, and you have that, and then they added blue. And so as it ages and as time progresses, they added color, and then they began to mix pigment and got some greens and things like that. So, yes, ma'am.
Did you say that you'd just done all this renovation since November?
No, they started it May 15th and finished it November 15th.
Okay. I couldn't, sorry, I didn't.
Well, actually, they still have some things to do because if you go across the thresholds in the restrooms, there's some things that have to be finished. This is a new floor. We had the old floor. They are going to refinish this floor because there's heavy tracks and kind of indentations from the cameras and the lights and that type of thing. Because of the kitchen and the bathrooms, they couldn't strip areas of the floor, and they thought it was cheaper to put down a new floor than to finish the old. And I didn't want a new floor. So they finally talked me into it, but this is all quarter sawn oak. They had to order it special. And it's beautiful because there's little bits of tiger oak and there's all the wonderful grains. The only difference about this floor is the planks are a little bit wider than the original, and they don't cut that narrow a plank anymore. And I also learned something else about floors. They don't cut strips as long. Used to, when the strips that they pulled out of here were tremendously long. We kept some in the basement. It was done with a little square-headed nail. We kept nails, and we found bottles in the basement where underneath some dugout things where blown bottles where there had been some alcohol by some folks, workers. And so we kept all these things, and we're trying to put them together for a display. Yes. What film was it that was filmed? It's called Rose Red. It's going to be on ABC in February 2002. The film, they're finished shooting, but they're in post-production. It won't be finished till the end of September, and they have to deliver it then to ABC. So it's going to be in Sweeps Week. We plan on having a preview thing here, too. Anybody else?
When was the film done? Since November?
No, they did. They actually came in, well, they did some things all along, but their actual filming here was done from September, October, and then they had 2 weeks to get it back together. They are reseeding our lawn. They ruined our lawn. It's filled up with dirt because you'll see scaffolding and horses and wagons ran through. The neighbors liked it because we all got passes, and we could go eat with these folks. And I tell you, they did pretty good. I just went one time for lunch. But for lunch, your choices for lunch, in addition to a veggie entree, was prime rib or lobster. And I can handle that. So don't feel too sorry for people. I mean, they may work, but if they work 12 hours, they get these fabulous 3 meals a day that are just to die for. So all the neighbors in our neighborhood got passes, name badges with their little pictures and everything on, and they all went up every day and had meals, and it was great fun. They had it in a very top part. They had fabulous catering.